Good morning. This is Virtual PBX dash admin training. Got a slightly early start here, so going to give people time to get logged in and join us. The training lasts about an hour and a half, give or take. Load times can have an impact. We do record these trainings, so if you need to leave, you can always come back and watch the rest of the training. And since we do record them all, you could always go back to previous ones if you need to. This also allows you to share the link with other staff members who may become admins at a later time or we're not able to make Tuesdays. Feel free to make use of YouTube's chat feature to ask questions about a specific feature as I'm going over it, and I'll try to circle back or address the feature in question at that time. Let's see, anything else? I have just some links in the description. Some of them are for specific features that do not show well on the streaming software. And there are several others that are related to business SMS, including the SMS registration webinar. And then there's an upcoming one on June 1st, so this coming Thursday, which is dealing with SMS opt-in. I think there's one other one for SMS. Oh, consent do's and don'ts of SMS was a couple weeks ago now. But those are basically on Thursdays, I think twice a month is what they go for. So for the one for June 1st, if you click on it, you can sign up to have YouTube notify you when it goes live. But with that, let's go ahead and get started. So on our page here, you see our dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can get there from the virtualpbx.com website. Just look for the blue bar going along the top of the page there, and there'll be a login link that will take you directly here. To get logged in, we need 3 pieces of information. The first is your email address. It should be in all lowercase letters. Sometimes browsers may put one at like the first character as a capital letter. You want to make sure you change that into a lowercase. Your password, which is case sensitive, and then lastly, your account name, which is typically your company name, and that is not case sensitive. Now, if for some reason you can't remember your password or you never got it, down here at the bottom right, there's a forgot your info link. You can click on that, it'll flip it. Now, we still need your email address, right, up here at the top. And then down here it says we need one of these two, right? So we need either the account name, right, so business name, or a phone number on the account, and that's a customer-facing phone number. And then you click on Reset Password. You'll get an email, right? The system will send it to the email address you put in that first box, and it'll have a link that lets you log into your user account page where you can change your password, and then it will log you out. If you try to navigate away from the user account page, it will also log you out. One thing to keep in mind for new signups, you'll get a couple emails when you sign up. One of them is saying, hey, we're preparing your account, and it does say that you'll get a second email with your account login information, right? That second email that has your login information, that means your account is ready and you can now log in. Until you get that second email, there's nothing our support team can do because the account is still in process of being created. All right, so when you come back here, to your login page, right? Put in your email address, put in that password you just typed. You have the opportunity here to click on Remember Me, so that way you don't have to keep typing everything in. And then you click on the sign-in box. Now, I'm using a test account that I log into on a regular basis. So when I log in, it's taking me right to my dashboard page. If it's your first time logging in, the system actually takes you to your user account page. You can always get back to that page by clicking on your name at the top of the screen. And it just brings a huge pop-up, right, that covers your screen. And here, again, you can change your password. I don't think it lets you change your email. Yeah, you would have to have another admin change your email address. You can also change your time zone and language display. As an admin over here on the left, I can also get to the account. I can also get to the account settings. And the main thing that's changed is typically like the email address for the technical account, contact, or the time zone and display language for the account itself. If you need to change the account name, right, there's not a way for you to do so here. You'd actually need to email our billing team. It's BILLING at virtualpbx.com. They obviously need to know the current name of the account and what you want to change it to. Right? There's things they have to link on the back end. On these pages, right, the dash wizard will have pop-ups telling you what certain things are. Once you're done, you just click close over here towards the top right, and you'll be on the dashboard page. The dash wizard will have pop-ups here that first time you log in. It will also have pop-ups on the user tab over here on the left and the groups tab, which we'll get to shortly. Now, this top bar on the top where it says Virtual PBX, it has my name, right? On your case, it would have your name. So you can always click on your name to get back to the account page. Immediately to the right of your name, you'll have a D&D toggle for Do Not Disturb. Now, I don't have it because my user is part of the call center, and those two features do not work well together. So once I was assigned to the call center, the D&D toggle was removed. But D&D, that just means allows you as a user to say, hey, I'm not taking calls right now. Right? You just click it, it flips it over, it makes it white, so you know it's on. Calls are going to go to voicemail. All right, click it to go make it disabled, so then you can get calls normally again. All right, next up, I have this little phone icon here. This opens up, this shows up after you've added a web phone device to your user. It's a VoIP phone. This will open up a new tab and take you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. It has a login page. It uses your same dash login information, right? So same email address, same password, same account name. The web phone allows you to use Chrome or Firefox from a computer to make and receive calls. Little graduation cap icon here. This will open up a new tab and take you to our support pages where you can find the various guides we have for these various features. Little chat bubble here that opens up the chat window so you can begin talking to a support representative so they can walk you through setting up a particular feature or troubleshooting a routing problem. Here, the three horizontal lines, the menu icon, sometimes we call it the hamburger icon. This takes you to other dash features. Now, for most of the training, we'll be here in the dashboard. That's like 3/4 of it. We'll touch on these others. Some of these I'm not able to properly show on the streaming software, and I'll refer to you to the links in the description notes when we get to those. And then the arrow to the right icon, that's the logout. Over here on the left, right, we're on the dashboard. These are other dash features. The auto attendance one, so the third one down, that is a plan-specific feature. I'll still go into it shortly, in a little bit, but it's only available on some plans. It's not available on all plans. Something to be aware of. Right here in the middle, I have total users, 23. That means I have 23 people on my account. Right? These are people who make and receive calls. Most of our plans are based on a per user basis. So the more users you add, the higher your bill. Then I have a breakdown here of total devices. I have 37 devices on the account. Little pie chart here. First up is Softphone, and I have 17 of them on this account. Softphone is a software application. It uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. So it is a VoIP phone, or counts as a VoIP device. And for this bucket here, this is including the VirtualPBX softphone app as well as any other softphone apps you might be using. The next bucket here is cell phones. That means I've added cell phone numbers as a device. So on Dash, right, we can route calls and we can have it end up at a cell phone or landline. You're just adding that phone number as a device on the account. The main thing to keep in mind is once it hits that cell phone, that's the endpoint of the call, right? The person receiving the call is not going to be able to transfer that call to someone else, right? Because there's no capability for the system to reach back out from the cell phone number, basically at that point, or landline number. Web phone, again, that Chrome or Firefox on a computer. Looks like we've got 6 of those. I think I need new glasses. Then next here, I have SIP phone. This is a piece of hardware, right? Physical device. Uh, Link, Cisco, Polycom, etc. Right? Sits on someone's desk. There's usually an Ethernet cable connecting it to the router to get out to the internet. Right? So it's a VoIP phone. Uh, so VoIP, in case you didn't already know, and I've said the term several times now, but VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. Right? Just means using your internet connection to make and receive calls. SIP is a subtype of VoIP device, right? There's several different kinds of protocols, and SIP is one of them. So if you're shopping for phones, you want to make sure it's SIP compatible or SIP compliant. Anything else is likely to be difficult to get to work. And then I have a single landline device as well. Here I have unregistered devices. I have 2, and that means I have turned 2 of my devices off, right? I've disabled them within the dashboard for whatever reasons. Next up, I have total numbers. I have 31. Your account includes some number of phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. I am well beyond most of those buckets in terms of allotment numbers. So I'm paying an overage per month per phone number at this point. Then I have a little breakdown here of assigned numbers and spare numbers. Assigned number means you're using it, right? So someone can call the number and expect to speak to someone or leave a voicemail, be joining a conference, or be sending a fax. Right? Spare number counts towards your allotment of numbers, right? But you're not using it right now. Like that could be you're about to expand into a new market, right? It's a new area code. You want to get the number ahead of time so you can start producing the marketing materials, any kind of signage, whatever, and have that number ready to go. Now, in that kind of scenario, I do suggest you put the number in service briefly to test it to make sure it works properly, and then put it back into spare numbers. This could also be that you had a promotion running, and now that it's over, you're like, okay, I'll take the number out of service, so we're not getting calls on a promotion that's no longer valid. Next breakdown here, I have USDID and US toll-free. US toll-free is US Canada toll-free, right? 800 number, 888, all the way down to 833. And USDID, that just means a US local phone number. Right, so a phone number in Elmira, New York, USDID, just as if you had one in San Jose, California. Conference bridges, this means I have enabled 7 of my users to moderate or host a conference. Now, I can't do that until I have a conference number, but I already have one. Now, if we look over to the immediate right here, towards the top, my main number box, I have 4 numbers here. These 4 phone numbers all behave the same way, right? They're all going to the same location on my system. And in this instance, they're all going to have the same main greeting. You can obviously have multiple numbers. You can choose only have one. That's purely up to you. Conference room number. This is the phone number everyone dials to reach the conference rooms. Whether they're your staff members, your customers, or vendors, this is the number they dial. You can have multiple conference room numbers. It doesn't give you any more conference rooms. They all go to the same number of conference rooms. All right, fax box number. This is your inbound fax number. You can have the one main fax box number, although you can assign your users to have their own fax boxes if you want them, and then if you want them to, and then they can have their own fax numbers assigned to those fax boxes. You can also then, once you have a main fax box number assigned, you can set up that fax box to also set up outbound permissions. So that way, like everyone, so if everyone at your company has at abcclearance.com as the end of their email address, you can set that up so that way every one of them can send a fax out from the system. They don't have to be a user on the Dash account. All right, next up we have the company directory. There's 2 links here, one for CSV and one for softphone. The CSV, basically you download it, open it up with a spreadsheet program, and it'll have your staff members, their names, their extensions, and their devices. And so in case people like that have that document handy. The softphone is for use with the VirtualPBX softphone application, right? So on a Windows or Mac PC. You would download this file, upload it to your VirtualPBX softphone on a Mac or Windows, computer, and this will allow you to see the status of the other virtual PBX soft phones on your account. Right, so if they're green, hey, they're not on a call, you can call them. Right, red, they're busy. Now, if you have, and that's great if those are the only devices your staff is using. Right, if you have a mix of devices, right, so like say my colleague Mike has a Yealing phone, I can only see from my soft phone, I can only see the status of his soft phone. Right, I can't tell if he's using his Yealing phone, excuse me, on a call at that time. So it's possible I could call him on his soft phone. He's like, hey, I need to call you back. I'm on my other phone. All right. Next up, we have VirtualPBX Store. This is a link. Opens up a new tab, takes you to store.virtualpbx.com, where you can order things like a VoIP phone or a router, among other things. And then lastly, down here at the end, we have the account realm. Each account has its own account realm, and you would use, this is one of the 3 pieces of information you would need to set up a third-party soft phone application. The other thing it's used for is for sending a fax out. So if you set up your outbound permissions on your fax box, you just create an email like you normally do. And in the to field, you put the plus sign, the number 1, area code and phone number. So no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. Put the little @ symbol. Then you plug in your account realm. Then you just need to attach a PDF or TIFF file and then click send. All right, so the system looks at the to field, the from field, and the attachments. Anything you type in the subject line or in the body of the email is not getting transmitted as part of your fax, and the system will only send 1 attachment. So if you've got like 5 attachments on that email, only 1 of them is going through, and I could not predict to you which one actually went out. Obviously, if you have a signature attachment file as part of your email, that can interfere with sending a fax out successfully as well. All right, up here at the top, where it says Sandbox Training, to the right, I have caller ID. So if I click on that, this pull down shows you the main numbers. Unfortunately, it doesn't work on my streaming software, but you can choose any of your main numbers here. And when you select the number, that number becomes the default number for, say, your VoIP phones. It becomes their default outbound caller ID phone number. It does circle back for a couple other features, which I'll touch on as we get to them. The company caller ID name, in the box here to the right, you can enter up to 15 characters, including spaces or special characters. So I can put in that, for instance. And this then we associate with this phone number and send out as part of the outbound caller ID. Now, this is completely optional. You don't have to do that. The company emergency information, this is the system wants a North American address. For Canadian customers, where it says zip code, just put in your postal code. And then for the state, put in your 2-character province abbreviation. And then click on Save Changes. Once you click on Save Changes, if you did put information here in the company caller ID name, it takes about 3 business days for the other carriers who support this feature to update their database. Now, the company caller ID name is not a guarantee, right? As I just mentioned, not every carrier supports it, right? This is only going to update the ones who do. So when you make an outbound call from your VoIP phone, your call can go through, say, half a dozen carriers to reach its destination. If one of those carriers doesn't support CNAME, the CNAME information doesn't reach that last network, right? Say, probably more problematic is when you're calling cell phones, right? So we reach out, send the call, it gets to say AT&T. AT&T, and actually this holds true for any carrier, but the cell phone carriers in particular, right? They get the caller ID information and the CNAME information, and they say, we're not sending the CNAME information. We'll send the phone number through, right? But we're not going to send anything else to our customers. And in my experience, and talking with other customers, several of the cell phone carriers, they want to charge their subscribers an additional monthly fee in order to have the CNAME information show up on calls that go to their cell phones. So you're going to run into issues when you call cell phone providers or cell phone customers with cell phones and expecting your company name to show up on the display, because not everyone's going to be willing to pay extra money to their cell phone provider. even when you're calling landlines or other VoIP providers for that matter, right, when the call reaches that destination carrier, that final carrier gets final say, what shows up on the phones on their network. Right? So they show the phone number, right, as long as it's in valid format, but they can choose to pass through the CNAM information, right? So everything goes through, everyone's happy. They can say, no, we don't like that information. We're going to look up the phone number under our own databases and then put in that information there, or just simply choose just to send the phone number only. All right, next up we have hold music. So this is your default hold music. And what that means is after a call has reached a user and then your staff member has pressed the hold button on their VoIP phone, that's when this media file will play. Now, you can upload your own files. Dash will play back .wav and .mp3 files. You want to make sure they're under 1 megabyte in file size. And to help with that, you probably want to record in mono. Gives you a little bit more room. But you find the file on your computer by clicking Browse, click the up arrow icon, and then Save Changes, and the system will save it to your system. You do want to give it a name that you can recognize relatively easily, just because there are pull downs that will pull from all the media files on the account, and you want to be able to quickly recognize which one is which. All right, so hours is actually part of main number. Let's go. I'm going to skip down to users and then groups, and then we'll go back to main number, and that's just so that way we can set up all of main number instead of bouncing back and forth. So users, right? These are people on your account who are making and receiving calls for the most part. If they have a little blue icon, right, blue suit icon, that means they're system admin, so they can do all the stuff we're talking about. Little gray person icon, this is a standard user. They have very limited access. Like for most of them, they might have access to their user portal, and that's it, which means they can check their voicemail and see their call history, things of that nature. Where system admins, they can do all the stuff we're talking about. Up here at the top, you can add a new user. It's going to create a box / form for you to fill out. Right. So in the first name, last name, it just wants some sort of text. The email address used for login needs to be unique for each user, right? So you cannot reuse an email address for multiple staff people. This is the email address used for login is how the system communicates with the user, right? So like for voicemail notifications, this is where it defaults sending that notification. Password resets, that's how, this is the email address it uses. Down here, password, you create a password for this person. And then you have the main extension number. Oops. Now, the system will suggest an extension number for you. Like if you started off like this system with extension 1000, the system is being helpful here and saying, hey, the next one is 1020. You can type in whatever you want. All right, like so. Now, here, the system will automatically create a voicemail box for the user. This voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So like if you added this user and then added a VoIP phone, right, it got registered, that person could pick up their VoIP phone, dial *98. That logs them directly into the voicemail box you just created for them. The system will then walk them through creating a PIN number for their voicemail box and then walk them through creating their voicemail box greeting. Right, so then they're all set up. Here is your option to have the person show up in the company directory. You can change your mind later. That's not a big deal. Here is the option to send to an alternate address. This means if you want those voicemail notifications and password resets to go to a different email address than the one you have for login, you put a check mark here and then put a different email address in the second field. Again, you can change that later. And to me, this is the other one that you should check, is send credentials to the user. This means once you click on create user, this person gets an email welcoming them to Dash. It gives them their Dash login information. All right. Now, if you need to add multiple, you would create user and add another. Now, it's possible if you just signed up with us, you have one user on the account and it does not have an extension number on it. and that's just so we give you the choice of how you want your system to be set up. What you would do is for that user, right? You would click on the extension box, and you would click on Add New Extension. You would put an extension number here, and then click on Save Changes. Once you have an extension number, then you can do things like enable your voicemail box. Right. So for users that you just create, when you click on the name, you can always come here to change the name. Like if you accidentally, mistyped their name. Here you can change their credentials. Click on that, so you can change their email address or their password. You can also send them the password reset email here if they want to create it themselves. Here you can change the voicemail box PIN number. Just enter 4 digits and save changes. All right, so here's the alternate address, email address, and here's the showing the user directory. This pull down over here, the next little person icon on the right side, this allows you to change a user into an admin or an admin to a user. If you're the only admin on the account, please do not change yourself to a user. The little icon here, clock icon, this allows you to change the time zone for the user, so that way their voicemail timestamps are correct. A little bell icon here, this is for ringing timeout. And actually, let's go down to Bob real quick here. So by default, ringing timeout is 20 seconds. That is plenty of time to send calls to a landline or a VoIP phone. If Bob was only using a cell phone, I would want to change this to 30 seconds, if not 40 seconds. Right? It simply takes longer to send a call to a cell phone than it does to a landline. Okay? Cell phone company has to find you first. Oh, I forgot the little flag icon. Flag icon, this changes the display language of the web pages here. You have your choices of English, French, German, or Russian. I don't know why the engineers chose those. And then the main extension number is going to be the extension number you assign to the user. And call ID privacy, we recommend you leave that on default. And then if you made any changes, click on Save Changes. All right, phone numbers. Users can have their own phone numbers. You have your option here from add from spare numbers, right? So a number you're not currently using, or maybe you were using at one point, and now you're going to reuse it, right? Or by numbers. And by numbers just means you're adding a new number to the account, right? So add from spare, it's you click on it, you choose the number. For instance, click add selected, and then you would save changes, or just unassign and then save changes. I don't know why you keep refreshing like that. So by numbers, you have a choice of local and toll free. So toll free, you choose the toll free prefix you want to work with. And hopefully it gives you a list of available numbers. And you can scroll down and it should refresh. Now, this list of numbers is dynamic, meaning you're actually competing with other people in real time. So especially with it's been a while. I had one customer who had 2 admins in 2 different remote locations, both trying to add numbers and taking numbers from each other, and they're both getting mad. Most commonly what happens is, someone adds a number here and then they get pulled away, right? The boss says, hey, meeting now. And then they come back and they try to complete the process and they get an error message because someone else actually completed the process while they were in that meeting. Right, so you click add. You can add multiple numbers at once if you want to. It shows a number here in your cart. Little trash can icon if you decide later, like, no, that doesn't look right. Otherwise, you click on by numbers. System verifies that the number was truly available. And then it's activating it and adding it to the spot you chose. And that's taking a little longer than There we go. And so once you're at this page, you click on Save Changes, and that completes the process. Now, when you have a phone number on a user, this phone number does not have hours of operation, right? So it's available 24/7. Something to be aware of. All right. Next up, we have group features. Oh wait, I'm sorry, I skipped devices. And what do we got here? All right. So when you click on the device box, you can show their devices. A green device means it's registered, meaning we can send calls to it, right? So your cell phone numbers and landlines will always show up as green, because as far as we know, we can send a call to it. Red means it's unregistered. This is typically going to be for your VoIP devices. If it's red, that means that they're not signed in, like the soft phone app or web phone, right? For a physical phone, it could be they're not plugged in, could be they're having an internet problem of some sort, or maybe they're just having a network setting problem. We don't know. Um, Down here, you have your option of add from spare devices or add from new devices, right? So spare means you're reusing a device. Right? New means you're adding a new one. So if we go to new, first up is SIP phone, right? So this is that piece of physical hardware. You have these manufacturers to choose from. Some like Yealink have a lot of models to choose from, right? Some like Owahai, not nearly as many. But click on the make and model of the phone you want to work with, and then you need to give it a name. I usually say the user's first name and then the word phone, right? So Bob's phone, right? Or the location, like warehouse phone, just so you can recognize where it is or where it's supposed to be, right? The reason I try to veer people away from saying like phone 1, phone 2, phone 3, 6 months from now or a year from now, you're like, hey, phone 1's down. You're like, well, who's that? Or where is that phone? It just makes an extra, effort to try to find out where it is. The next thing we need is the MAC address. This is unique to each phone. Typically a sticker on the back of the phone. If the phone's plugged in, under it's like either basic settings or status set of settings, it should show up there, and you want to enter it here, and then click on Create Device. Now, let's go down to Bob. So here we've added a Yealink phone to Bob. What you want to do next is under Advanced is then select Miscellaneous, where it says Allow Reprovision, click on Unlock, and then Save Changes. That just tells the system, hey, this phone is going to get reprovisioned. Let it connect fully to get its config file. Now, for the dashboard, you're basically done. However, you need to log into the phone's web user interface. What I would suggest at that point is click on the little graduation cap icon here, and the support tab or the support pages tab that opens up, do a search for auto provisioning. Right, so the word like auto, like automobile, and then the word provisioning, like provisions, like going out camping. This will get you the complete guide for auto provisioning. It will actually talk about unlocking the phone on our dashboard, but it will then have the steps necessary to go through the various manufacturers. It'll have screenshots, the proper syntax for a URL you're telling the phone to go to, and in some cases, a couple additional settings just to verify. But basically, you're giving the phone a URL to go to, right? The phone says, okay, goes out to on the internet to that URL. It grabs this configuration file. It's going to reboot a couple times. After it's done rebooting, and I usually say give it like 5 to 10 minutes after it's done that, it should show up as a green device on your account here. Oh, hey, I forgot something on phone numbers. There's a little gear icon here. Excuse me. So you can set up caller ID for each phone number, both the outbound name, right, the CNAME information, or the ability to turn on inbound CNAME, which could help your staff members, right? They can see the names of the people who are calling in. E911, each phone number can have its own E911 address. This allows you then to assign phone numbers to specific VoIP phones. So that way for E911 purposes only, that's the information that gets sent to emergency services, right? So I can assign to Bob a specific phone number with a specific address where he's located. So that way, when he picks up his VoIP phone and dials 911, that address that he's at is what's sent to emergency services. Now, when he makes his normal calls, his normal caller ID would go through, not the E911. And prepend, this is a VoIP phone feature. You can add additional text in front of the phone number, caller ID information that shows up on your staff members' phones. All right, let's go back to devices here. Actually, I should go back to Bob. Did Bob have that one? No, must be Ariel or Aaron. So next up is cell phone. And I'm just going to click here to show you the box here. So you just need to give it a name, and then you give it the number. +1, area code and phone number, no spaces, no dashes, no parentheses. You click on create device, right? And then save changes. Once you come back to it, if you go under advanced, it lets me, here we go. This is the default setup for a new cell phone or landline. So what happens? Right? So call comes in, reaches out to your cell phone, right? Your cell phone rings, you pick up. When you pick up, the first thing you'll hear is, this is a forwarded call, please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take this call. You have to do that, pressing that 1 fairly quickly. Right, then the call is connected, you help the customer, everyone's happy. Now, if, for instance, let's say you contracted with another company to handle your after-hours calls, right? Said, yeah, just here's a phone number, have all your calls go to this phone number, we'll handle. Well, usually those after-hours answering services are automated to some degree. So there's not someone there pressing 1 to accept the call. So in that situation, what you would want to do is come here, right? So under advanced, click in front of allow use of cell phone's voicemail or landline, and then click on save changes, and then you would click save changes here. Now, what happens is now when we send that call to that cell phone on Aaron's user here, right, it gets sent to that phone number, it rings, their automated answering service picks up. We connect the call, right? There's no message about having to press 1. It just automatically connects when we hear that pickup tone. Answering service handles it, everyone's happy. Now, some people actually don't want to have to press 1, right? It's like it's a waste of time, or maybe they're not fast enough, or they don't think they're fast enough, what have you. Just, it's an extra hassle they don't want to deal with. So they can do that as well. The downside of that is if you do this through your personal cell phone, for instance, what can happen is your personal cell phone voicemail can pick up. That's still a pickup tone. So the system says, oh, they picked up, send the call through. So you can have callers end up on your personal cell phone's voicemail. Now, some people definitely want that. Other people definitely don't. So something to be aware of. The other thing that can come up is this one here, is keep original caller ID. So by default, call comes in, customer Mary calls in, reaches my cell phone. On my cell phone, I see customer Mary's phone number. If I don't recognize it, and in general, for me personally, right, if I don't recognize the phone number, I typically don't pick up. Too many robo-dialers and spammer, telemarketers and whatnot, I usually let it go to voicemail. Which means in the case of a business phone system, right, that could be a problem. I could be missing out on a sale. So what you could do is uncheck this, right? And then save changes and save changes here. So what happens is instead, when customer Mary calls me and it reaches my cell phone, I see my main phone number. Now, hopefully I recognize my main company phone number. Somebody, oh, this is a work call. Let me try, pick up. Right? It's worth it. All right. And next up here is the soft phone. Now, whenever you add a soft phone or a web phone to your account, you're going to get this first warning message. It's basically saying for E911 purposes that because there's wireless VoIP technology, you might not be at the location that's associated with your device. So you may not want to dial 911 from it if you're not at your normal location. So definitely read it once or twice, and then click on close. Then you'll get a big box. That's going to show up here. Now, this setup here is for a third-party soft phone application, right? So that means you're using someone else's soft phone app, or you're using it to set up hardware, right? So like you didn't see your particular VoIP phone show up on our list, you're going to instead try to provision it manually. So in either of those instances, right, you would give it a name, you would copy and paste the SIP username, click on the SIP password box so you can copy and paste it, do not change it. And then you would use your account realm. Those are the three pieces of information you would need to provision a third-party soft phone or device. Now, one thing to notice is right down here, it says use third-party application. It's kind of grayed out. It's right towards the bottom below where it says view configuration guide. You can click on that toggle there. So now it says use VirtualPBX application. So this means you're setting up a VirtualPBX soft phone. You still give it a name, right? Then you click on create device, and then you click on save changes. Once you click on save changes, the user gets an email saying that your VirtualPBX soft phone is ready, and we'll give them the login information and download links. So if you want to make use of the VirtualPBX soft phone, you need to add it directly here on the users page. Right? You're not going to have that option under the devices tab, which we'll be getting to a bit later. Landline is basically the same as cell phone. The web phone, you typically also want to add to a user because it uses the user's login information on the webphone.virtualpbx.net. So here you would just give it a name, click on create device, and then save changes. And then you can go to that page. Excuse me. All right, let's go to user features. So first up is caller ID name or number, excuse me. When you turn it on, you select the phone number on the user, then you click on save changes. And what this does is when Ariel here makes an outbound call, it will show this number instead of the main number I have selected on the account. Right? If I leave it as is, whenever Ariel makes an outbound call from his VoIP phones, it will show the 424 phone number I have set up under the main number. All right, virtual text application. This is a relatively new feature. This allows you to set up texting for your staff members. So you would turn it on, select a phone number on the account. This can be a main number, auto attendant number, or a number assigned to the user. You click on save changes. They will get an email welcoming them to virtual text. So it's possible you have a staff member getting 3 emails from VirtualPBX, right? One welcoming them to their Dash account with their Dash login information. A second one for the VirtualPBX soft phone app with its own login information and download links. And then a third one from Virtual Text, welcoming them to Virtual Text with its own login information, also download links to the app for your mobile devices. You can also log into the website, virtualtext.app. Again, it's going to use the information created for the user, and they can use that from their computer then to manage texting. The main advantage of virtual text is to share numbers among your users, so that way you have multiple people keeping track of text conversations with your customers. Now, if this feature is not showing up on your account, you do want to reach out to our account services team, and they also cover this on. They should cover this on their onboarding they have set up with you. Basically, there's some qualification things they have to go over with you. They also have to go over SMS registration with you, because that's an industry-wide thing that's happening for texting for business accounts. All right, voicemail box. So once a user has an extension, they can have voicemail activated. Excuse me. And this is a default setup for voicemail, meaning when voicemail comes in, the system attaches an MP3 file to the email notification and gets sent out to the customer or to the staff member. Now, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they are full and won't accept any more. The email notification, that just lets you, listen to the voicemail, but it doesn't actually delete it from the account. In this default setup, though, you have two other ways you can check your messages. The first is for your staff members to log into dash.virtualpbx.com and go to the user portal. That will default them to their voicemail tab so they can listen to them directly on their computer and delete the messages that way. Or you can call in, right? So if you have your main number, go to the virtual receptionist, which we'll be getting to shortly. Instead of entering a menu option or an extension number, your staff members can enter *97 from like a cell phone or a landline, or from their VoIP phones, they can just do *98. They don't even have to call into the main number. So they log in over the phone, right? They give their voicemail box number and their PIN number. They listen to the messages over the phone, and they'll have the option to delete them that way. Now, let's say you use a voicemail box that's particularly busy, right? It goes to like a group or whatever. It just lots of calls come into it. There's no way you're going to have a person be able to keep track of all of those voicemails and manually delete them themselves. So in that kind of situation, you would want to do this. Right? Delete after notification is sent out. So voicemail, the call comes in, leaves a voicemail. The system sends out the email with the voicemail attachment and then deletes it from the system. All right, so that way the voicemail box doesn't get full. So that way you're always getting messages that you need to. And, the emails are getting sent out. Downside is that if there's a problem with your email, then you might be missing messages. Transcription is an optional feature. Basically, the system listens to the voicemail message and types it out in the email notification. Follow Me is a feature for users with multiple devices. You would just click Enable, and then you need to tell the system which devices am I using. Right, so you uncheck the box next to it. You get this little green bar here. You click and drag to the right, and now you have ring times. You also have a total timer up here. Defaults to 120 seconds. You can default it to 100, for instance. Then you click Distribute. So now it equalizes out. If I don't like that order, I can click and drag and then redistribute. So now the web phone is first. Whatever I do, though, then click on Save Changes. One thing to keep in mind is if you ever add a device to a user that already has Follow Me set up, you need to go into Follow Me to decide if that new device is going to be used for receiving calls. Fax box, you can choose to have users have their own fax box if you want to. You have the option of adding a spare number, buying a new number, or assigning an extension number. I always recommend making use of a phone number that gives this user the maximum versatility, right? If they have their own phone number on their fax box, they can send and receive faxes without issue, and from anybody, pretty much, right? If you select an extension number, that means they can only ever receive a fax, and even then you're limiting who might be able to send them a fax, right? Like, so some of these electronic fax services, at least the ones I've played around with so far, they don't have a capability of sending to an extension. They decide, nope, you can send it to a phone number and that's it. Right. And even for those people who use analog fax machines, you're relying on that person who's sending a fax to be able to know how to send faxes to an extension. Right. Some people just type in the number and walk away, right? Not realizing that, oh, you can add some extra button presses to give a pause and then the extension number, or even worst case, right? You listen in onto till you hear the greeting, then you enter the extension number and then send fax. So if you're going to do this, again, I recommend making use of a phone number and then save changes. And then that phone number, whenever someone faxes to that number, it goes strictly to this user only. The conference bridge, once you enable it as an admin, the only thing you actually really need to do is create a PIN number for them and then click on Save Changes. And all this means is that this user can host or moderate a conference. Right? They can already have joined a conference as long as you had someone else be a moderator. You need at least one person to moderate in order to have conferences going, in addition to having a conference room number. The enable video conferencing, that's just in-house only, right? So Dash users can have it, but anyone outside of Dash would not be able to. Call forwarding, you have off, on, or failover mode. Your staff members can set up call forwarding to off or on their own. Failover mode is something you would have to set up for them as an admin. And this is for when like their VoIP phone goes offline, you can have the system automatically forward to a specific phone number. Now, this is best if they only have VoIP phones on their user, right? If they already have like their cell phone number on as a device on their user, you don't need to make use of call forwarding because it will get to that phone eventually, depending on your settings. But you choose the type of the phone number, and then here you enter +1 area code and phone number, and then save changes. Customize call recording, you can choose to enable call recording. And when you do so, it starts off like this because you still need to tell the system what kind of calls to record. Inbound internal, right? Coworker call, right? So Bob called Ariel, right? Inbound external, customer Mary called Ariel. Outbound internal is Ariel called coworker Bob. And then outbound external is Ariel called customer Mary back. So we usually see something like this or this for most people who want to record calls, right? And then you would click on Save Changes. Now, your account includes some level of data storage as part of your monthly plan price. If you just signed up with this, you would want to go to the pricing page, and there's like a toggle that will show everything. It will show you how much data storage you have and what the overages is. If you have a high call volume and you're going to record every call, it's strongly recommended that you talk to account services about AWS integration. And what that does is it'll allow you to link your Dash account to an AWS account that you have, right? So then you can have your calls stored on AWS, which in the long run, especially at high volumes, is going to be more cost effective. Music on hold. If you choose to enable it, you can upload a media file. All right, just click browse for .mp3.wav under 1 megabyte, and then click on Save Changes. So this means whenever this person presses hold, this particular media file is what will play instead of the default hold music I have set up under the dashboard. Do not disturb. If you click it to enable, that means this user is not accepting calls, right? So like if they're on a heads down project, they can take no calls. This is what you would turn on for them. Hot desking is a VoIP phone feature. When you enable it, you create a hot desk ID. I usually say if you have 4-digit extensions, match the hot desk ID to their extension number. Up to you if you require a PIN number or not, and then save changes. So this is for a shared office environment or where people may not be at the same desk each time they come into the office. So also good for hybrid scheduling. So say Ariel comes in the office on Tuesday, he sits down at desk number 2, picks up the phone, he hits *11, that turns on hot desking, enters his hot desk ID. Now calls are coming to him at the desk he's sitting at, right? Desk number 2. End of his day, he picks up the phone, *12 to turn off hot desking, he goes home. Next time he comes in the office, say it's Friday, comes in, he sits down at desk number 5, picks up the phone, hits *11, excuse me, enters his hot desk ID, and now calls are coming to him at desk number 5. All right, so now you have groups or users, and hopefully with devices, you can then create groups if you want to. Groups are departments, right? A group of people answering calls about similar topics. Up here at the top, you click on Add Group. You give it a name, you give it an extension number, and then you click and drag your staff members over to the right to be in the group, and then you click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can click on their name here. You can change the name at any time. And then here you have the group call attempts. This is how many times the system will offer the call to the group members. Little arrows here to the right, so you can increase that as you need to or decrease it. You can delete a group here at the bottom right, but if you made any changes, click on Save Changes. Next up, we have the members box. This shows all your staff members and how you're offering calls to them. So in this case, this is ring all or blast ringing. So a call comes in, rings all my staff members at the same time, right? So whoever gets the call first, whoever picks up first gets the call. Now, for my staff members who have multiple phones, it's going to ring all of their devices at the same time. It's going to ignore the follow me settings we set up under under the user, right? So calls from the group, ignore the user feature, follow me. So it's one way for your staff members to know, oh, I'm getting a group call when all their phones ring at the same time. One thing to be aware of under a ring all situation like this is, let's say Bob and Michael both pick up the call at the same time, right? So the system has to decide who gets that call, right? So let's say it gives it to Bob. Michael might hear dead air, even though he thought he was picking up a call. Now, if you're all in the same office, that's easy to figure out. Like, oh, okay, I hear Bob, so he must have got that call. Not a big deal. But when you're working remotely, a little bit harder. So you might have to look at the call logs to see what happened. Especially if Michael can give you the phone number. Hey, this number called in, but I got dead air. You can see, no, Bob got it, and you can move on. Now, along the top here, you got timestamps. It defaults to 120 seconds. I can change it to be higher if I wanted to. Likewise, I have this distribute button, so now I can have it ring in order. Now, the downside of this in groups is that every call that comes to the group will follow this order no matter what. Right? It's not going to skip Bob just because he's on a call. Right? So first call comes in, Bob picks up. Second call comes in, and he's still on that first call. He'll get call waiting beep if he has it enabled on his device. Right? But then after, in this case, 48 seconds, then it rolls over to Aaron. All right, let's change this down to 120 because let's be real, it's not going to end up being like that. Anyway, so even after 24 seconds, right, it would roll over to Aaron. So if Bob and Aaron are both on call, that third call comes in, it's 48 seconds before it's offered to me. Right now, these are, you can click and drag these, right? So I can have a little bit more overlap if I want to, so that my successive callers aren't on hold quite as long. Right? And obviously, once Bob's done, then the next call that comes in, he's going to get right away. Now, the other downside is that in general, from groups, your staff members can't log themselves out of a group. They can't mark themselves away. At best, they'll have the D&D toggle, which could cause, actually, I haven't tested that, but they could do a D&D, which hopefully just skips down to the next person. Oh, if you need to add more people, you have the add option here. Just like, oh, here, right. So then you just add some people, right? You can click and drag and move people around if you need to, so you can adjust the distribution. If you need to remove someone, and when you remove someone like at the top, like I just did, then you would want to click distribute again to make sure you have someone starting at 0. You can, and then any changes you want to keep, you just click on Save Changes. Groups can have their own phone numbers if you want them to. Just like under users, if they have their own number, it's 24/7, right? Either add from spare or by new. If you choose local, right, there might be, oh, in this case, so 310 is in Los Angeles. For the longest time, we never had any numbers, so seeing 4 here is actually pretty surprising. You can always go back. But if you ever get a message saying that there's no numbers available, you want to do a search like under Google for 310 overlay. It'll tell you it's 424. And basically an overlay area code, just two or more area codes that cover the same geographic spot. But just like anywhere else, you add a number, you click on by numbers. And then you have to wait for it to finish activating. And then you would click on Save Changes once it's done. you click on the numbers here, that's how you get back to that gear icon, the adjusted caller ID E911. Group features, ring back. So when a call comes into the group, right, call gets offered to the group members, their phones start ringing, that sound gets piped back to the inbound caller. If you don't want that sound, right, then you would enable a ringback and upload a media file, right, click browse, mp3.wav recorded in mono. In this case, right, I have don't worry, be happy, will play instead of that ringing sound until one of my staff members picks up. The main thing to remember about the ringback, or one of the things to remember about the ringback file, you want to make sure it lasts as long as your ring duration that you've set up for your users, right? So default of 240 seconds, or 120 seconds, excuse me, so 2 minutes. So you want to make sure this file is at least 2 minutes long. Next action, right? Click to enable. If no one answers the call, where do you want to forward the calls to? So pull down here, so you can send it back to your main menu. You can send it back to another group. You can send it to a call queue if you're making use of queues. You can send it to a specific phone, right? So a specific wave phone or phone number. You can send it to a specific user. You can send it to a voicemail box, which is typically the most common. And then save changes. Allow call forwarding if you turn it on, and then save changes. That means your users can make use of call forwarding from their devices. Again, if your staff members are using multiple devices or include their cell phone, probably don't need to make use of it. Caller ID prepend is for your VoIP phone users, right? When you click enable it, you can have additional text or numbers show up in front of the caller ID that shows up on their phone's displays. You want to use one or the other, not both. And then click on Save Changes. All right, so we have groups in place now. We have users in place. So let's go to main number. So first up, you got your main company numbers. If you need to add numbers or buy numbers, right, you can do so here at the bottom. You can remove an existing number here if you don't want to use it as a main number any longer. Then you have office hours strategy, 24-hour open office, right? So you're open 24/7. Most choose custom office hours. For each day of the week that you're open, put a check mark in front of the day, and then set your open hours in 24-hour or military time. You also have the option down here to say, hey, my system closes for lunch at the same time every day that we're open. You just put a check mark here and then put your lunch hours in that 24-hour or military time. And then any changes you make, click on Save Changes. Next up, are you closed for holidays? If you are, put a check mark here. And then over here on the far right, you have an option here to add holidays. Right, single day, date range, or advanced. Each one of those creates a new row. Right, so you give the row a name. So in this case, I have single day for New Year's Day. I choose January 1st, and then Save Changes. Right, if I want to get rid of it, click on the trash icon. Date range, like I have here for Christmas holiday, give it a name, start date, end date, Save Changes. There's no year indicator, so as a precaution, we recommend against having a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. It hasn't been a problem in a long time, so not a big deal, but just, again, a precaution. And then advanced Thanksgiving, choose the month, choose 1st through 5th as well as last, and then the day of the week, and then Save Changes. Incoming call handling. So for my main numbers, how am I handling calls? Right, so I have open hours tab, I have an after hours tab, I have holidays. If I had chosen to be closed for lunch, I'd also have a lunch hours tab. Right, and these first three options here, right, virtual receptionist, this option here, then the virtual receptionist, or here, and then voicemail, those will always show up for you. That fourth one at the very end shows up under a couple circumstances, doesn't come up very often. So calls come in during my open hours. I'm saying go to my virtual receptionist. This is a link. It's going to open up a big old box. On my left-hand side here, I've got my main menu. All right, this is where I can set up, pressing 1 to go to someplace, 2, like 1 for sales, 2 for support, that sort of thing. To create those, I click on Add Route. It gives me a new row. This first pull down, you have 0 through 9, as well as a star key, and you also have the default action. And then here, the second pull down is anything you've already created on the account, right? So you would need to have users and groups at the very least to have some destinations. But again, you can have it go to a specific person. You can go to a call queue if you're making use of those, any groups you have set up, a specific device, right? So a specific phone, media file, which would be like if you have like hours of operation or directions. But once the media file is done playing, the call ends. And then you also have voicemail boxes as an option. Greetings. All right, this is where you say thank you for calling and your organization name, and then you give directions to the caller in terms of what to press to get to who. All right, so text to speech, type in a greeting here, click update, save, and save changes. The system reads it back in a computerized robotic voice. This is fine if you're just getting started. You're not sure how you're going to want things routed, what have you. They're free, right? So there's no charge for them. The downside is each time you type in here, right? So I type in here, click update, save, and save changes. It saves the file for me as main open hours menu TTS, right? So main open hours menu and text to speech for TTS, right? So I created this and it didn't sound right. So then I added an additional line. Right? I click update and save changes. Now I have 2 files called main open hours menu TTS. From a pull down, I'll never be able to tell the difference. So if you're going to make use of text to speech, that's great. That's fine. Just after you finish creating one, over here on the left, click on greetings. It's the what? 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th option down, and you'll have the option there to edit the name, so it'll be something you could recognize. You can upload your own file, right? .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Just find the file on your computer, click update, save, and save changes. You can choose from an existing file. And again, see this one here is main open hours menu TTS. I just added keep, so I know that's the one I want to keep. Unfortunately, the pull down on here doesn't work, but it shows all your media files. Hold music files, main greetings, voicemail greetings, they all show up here. You can record it over the phone. Now, when the system says pick up a phone registered in this account, that means a VoIP phone. If you want to call from like a cell phone or a landline, what you would want to do is down here under allow outside recording, turn that on. Right, so that turns on the ability for other phone numbers to call in and change the main greeting. Now, if you just signed up with us, if you called your main number, it'll probably give you a message saying that the greeting for this menu has not been recorded yet, and then prompt you for the PIN number. Right, that would be this number here. Now, this PIN number is specific to this time of day. Right, so it's only available during my open hours, which is Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. Anything outside of that, this PIN number will not work. Now, if I have a greeting in place, right, so let's say I have that text-to-speech greeting in place. When that greeting is playing, I can enter my PIN number, and the system will recognize it and then switch to walking me through recording the greeting over the phone. In that scenario, right, I'm overwriting the content of the main greeting that's in place. So the main menu open hours menu TTS dash keep, right? The file name stays the same, but what the content I'm about to change. Professional recording services, when you click order, this will open up a tab and take you to Snap Recordings, where you can order a professionally done greeting. Right? There's voice actors and actresses to choose from. They have their own packages in terms of pricing. They deliver to you via email, so then you would just come back up to upload your own file and upload it to the system. All right, settings. Number of retries on misdial, how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake. Right, call comes in, they press 5, for whatever reasons, the system checks, oh, that's not a menu option, not an extension number. It will play their greeting again. And then hopefully the person presses a valid option. Dialing timeout, this is how much time the system listens for a second or third button press, right? So that inbound caller, they pressed 5, the system would wait 5 seconds, said, oh, they only meant what, just one digit. That doesn't match anything we have, misdial. We already covered allow outs for recording. Allow dialing extensions. When this is on, which is default, that means if the inbound caller enters a valid extension number, the system will transfer the call, right? If I turn this off, that means the inbound caller can only press these menu options. Anything else is an invalid option. And then down here, suppress the playing of invalid option. If I don't want that message to play saying, we did not recognize your entry, goodbye, I could turn this on. That suppresses that message. And so now the call would simply just end. Or if I had a default action, it would send the caller to that default action. So any changes you make, click on Save here. And then we get back to this page, click on Save Changes. Right. Second option is a live operator answer option, meaning you're offering the idea is to offer the call to a person or group of people so they have a chance to answer it, right? If they can't answer it, then it goes to your virtual receptionist. So this first pull down, you're typically going to be choosing from groups, call queues, or users, potentially devices too, right? Because just as long as it rings, after it defaults to 20 seconds. But like groups, it will follow the group call settings, right? And then afterwards, it would go to the virtual receptionist. Now, this is my after hours receptionist, so I would have a different greeting in place. I have different menu options. I can have different settings here as well. And then this third option here, I'm sending them straight to voicemail. Now, I can instead offer the call to, a staff member, a group, a queue. I can play a media file, what have you. But whatever I offer to it, after it's done offering and no one picked up, then it goes to whatever voicemail box I designated. Main conference number, you can have multiple conference room numbers if you want. That's why there's the option here to buy from new or add for spare. We also have custom greeting, which is a text-to-speech greeting. You just type in the greeting that you wanted to say. Text-to-speech greetings are limited to 250 characters, not words. That also applies to the main greeting. I don't think I said that, so I do apologize. But once you're done here, click on Save, and then that greeting will play. Even without a greeting in place, right, this system still says welcome to the conference and prompts the inbound caller to enter the conference number and then the PIN number. Main fax box number, you can only have the one fax box number. That's why I don't have the options to add any. But once you do have one, you can edit the fax box. Inbound notification emails, right? So whenever a fax comes in, the email address you designated here gets an email saying, hey, you have received this fax. The date, the time, phone number is in the body of that email, and then a PDF attachment. Now, if someone dials your fax number and then hangs up, right? Let's say they dialed it from their cell phone by accident. This person gets an email saying there was a failed inbound fax attempt. Now, if you were expecting a fax or it's from a phone number you know that you're supposed to get faxes from, then you'd want to contact the other person to find out what happened on their side. You can also reach out to us so we can test to make sure it's working properly. But generally speaking, if you go into your call logs and see a call to your fax box number that's like 12 seconds, it's not nearly enough time to even try to transmit a page. And that up to like 18 seconds is what we typically see for a hang-up. All right. Auto attendance, plan-specific feature. Used for a couple things. One, you can use this to set up sub-menuing, right? So you can say calls come in, press 1 for English, 2 for Spanish. You would then create an English and Spanish auto attendance with greetings in those languages with the menu options going to people who speak the appropriate language. The other use case that we've come across is people with multiple businesses who want those businesses on the same account, right? But each business has its own main number, its own main greetings, etc. You might have the same staff people handling calls for these multiple businesses, but again, they're separate, right? Up here at the top, you would click on Add Attendant, give it a name, give it an extension number, click on Create Attendant. Once attendant is created, it looks like this, right? You have the name. It says unavailable in main menu, and that just means it's a standalone attendant. I.e., it's designed to be its own business, right? Someone's not gonna be able to get to here from your under your main number, right? Your staff members could transfer it because they have access to the extension number. Now you can click on that. It says available in main menu. You click on save changes. That means it's a sub menu option, right? So people can press a menu option to get to it. If you have it set up that way, it'll be an option under the groups under next action. Right. Attendants can have their own phone numbers. You can have multiple, right? So that's why you buy from new or add from spare. They can have multiple extension numbers if you want them to, just like anything else. And then under the wrench icon, under settings, you have open hours, after hours, and holidays. This matches what we set up under your main number, right? So all your secondary attendants are the same hours of operation as your main system. But beyond that, right, they're all going to the virtual receptionist. So you set up menu options, a greeting, your settings, and then you would click on save and save changes. Devices shows all devices on your account. Black means you've turned it off under this enable column here. Red, unregistered, people aren't logged in essentially. Green, we can send a call to it. You can add devices here as well, right? SIP phone, cell phone, etc. Main thing, again, for soft phone, you don't have the little toggle here. So you're not going to be able to add a VirtualPBX soft phone under the devices tab. You have to do it under the users tab. And yes, we get that a lot. Also on this page, you can check on, if you click on the wrench icon here, under advanced audio. For the VirtualPBX soft phone, the audio should be, under selected, should be Opus. Right. If we go to a physical phone, like this Yealink one over here, it should be G711A or G711U. Those are basically the only three codecs we use. If you're using a soft phone to mimic hardware, right? So like I have here for this device, right? It's using a soft phone, but a T42 is actually a Yealink phone. You would still want to go to the audio and make sure you have G711A. Actually, should also have G7. There we go. It should be like that. And then you click on Save Changes. Additionally, you can change the external caller ID, right? So you can select a specific phone number in your account that shows up whenever this device makes an outbound call. But the emergency information, right? That's so you can have the E911 for a specific phone number associated with this device. So whenever Josh uses this phone to make a call to 911, I can have it set up to a specific phone number that has his correct address. All right, so let's go to Greetings tab. Shows all your media files on the account, right? So hold music files, voicemail greetings, main greetings. Up here at the top, you can click Add, so you can upload a new one, right? You give it a name, find the file, click, oops. And then once it's finished uploading, click on Create Greeting. This doesn't allow you to assign it anywhere, but it's now available from the pull down. Right? But here you see your file names and then the source, right? TTS, text to speech. Upload means you uploaded it. Recording means it was recorded over the phone. This column here allows you to play back the file directly in your browser. If for some reason that doesn't work, you have the download option, so you can download it to your computer or device and listen to it that way. And then you have the wrench icon under edit. So this is where you can change the name. And then you have option to delete. Numbers, this takes you to your numbers in use tab. So you can see what your numbers are assigned again, you can't unassign a number here. You got the gear icon here, so you can update the caller ID, E911, or PPEN. Spare numbers, right? Shows the numbers you're not using. If you want to remove a number completely from the account, then what you would do is click on the box in front of it, and then the option to delete would show up. All right, click delete and confirm the deletion. All right, by numbers on this page here just adds new either local toll-free numbers to your spare number list, right? So then you're adding from spare. Port starts the port process. You just give it a name, choose local or toll-free. Then you need to upload a PDF copy of your bill within the last 30 days. Several steps follow that. Basically, you fill out like your address information that should match what your current carrier has on file for you. It's going to ask you for things like the account number, the BTN, which is the billing telephone number. If you're porting one number, your BTN is the number you're porting. In some cases, it will ask for a PIN number. That's not required to port a number necessarily. That depends on your current carrier. As far as I know, every wireless carrier requires a PIN number to port out. It's a security feature, so that way the cell phones don't stop working suddenly. Right? So if you port a cell phone number to us, the cell phone that it's associated with will stop working because it doesn't have a number anymore, unless you get a new number from your cell phone carrier. But like if you're, especially if you're porting from another like VoIP provider or a Canadian number, those typically have add PIN numbers associated with them. So you might need to check your carrier for that. You can download a blank LOA through this process, as well as upload a completed and signed LOA. The LOA does need to be signed, right? Printing your name twice gets rejected. Typing your name twice gets rejected. And it just delays when your port gets completed. Typically speaking, toll-free numbers take about a week. Right? It's like 3 to 5 business days. Local numbers anywhere from like 2 to 3 weeks on average. In both cases, that assumes everything is correct. If we get a rejection, we double check to make sure we didn't have a typo somewhere on our side. Or in the case of like an address rejection, we double check to see if there's a different address we could use, right? So like if your bill has one address, but your LOA only listed one address that didn't match, then we would check with both. But after that, then we contact you saying, hey, we're getting a rejection for this reason. This is what we submitted. And then you'd have to talk with your current carrier to find out why, or what do you need to get the number to port. All right, voicemail boxes. You can create your own voicemail boxes on this page here. All right, it shows you the voicemail boxes that are created. Anything that has an entry under the user column here, that means it was the voicemail box that was created with the user at the same time. Up here at the top, you can click on Add Voicemail Box, give it a name, voicemail box number, and then a PIN number. Click on Create Voicemail Box. This information is what you would use to access the voicemail box over the phone, right? The voicemail box number and PIN number specifically. And that's also how you can record over the phone. Once a voicemail box is created, you can click on the wrench icon to see this information. Then under Advanced, under Greeting Media, you can upload your own files, right? Or you can choose from existing files from the pull downs here. Excuse me. All right. If you have something under so let's say you have something selected under temporary and media. The temporary file plays, not the media file. The media file itself will not play until you have temporary set back to none. Right? And the temporary is designed for like out of office vacation message. Recipients. So the voicemail box you created with the user have a built-in recipient, right? The user email address. If you need to add additional, you can add new recipient. You'd also do this for any voicemail box you create on this page. But you click on Add New Recipient, enter the email address. And if you only need to add one, click on Save Changes. If you need to add more, click on Add to add the next person or next email address. And then under Advanced Options, once they have a media file in place and a recipient, then under Already Set Up, you can put a check mark there. And then here you can make sure you've got attached emails is present. And if you want to have the delete after notification, depending on how busy this voicemail box is. And then Save Changes. All right, call logs. Call logs show your call history on the account. You have today, right, this week, and this month, right? You can download them as CSV files. So if you're good with spreadsheet programs, you can get quite a bit of information here. And let's see if we can find. So a green arrow to the right is a call coming into your system, and you click on it to expand, and you can see the devices that it was offered to. And then here, right, this last one, it has normal clearing next to it. That lets me, and it also has a longer duration. So that let me know which one uh, accepted the call, right? Here you can see it was offered also to the cell phone number and it was rejected, right? He didn't pick up. Here, I don't know if this is gonna, here's an outbound call, right? Yellow arrow to the left. I can see this is the device that Mike used and the phone number he reached out to, and that call ended normally. You have a little fire extinguisher icon here. This lets you report the call to our support team, right? So it creates an email for you to address to support at VirtualPBX. It has a technical information. Please type in context, like why are you sending it to it? We might be able to understand from the technical information why, but sometimes we can't, right? It just tells us this call happened. It doesn't give us anything like, oh, you had bad audio, right? It won't tell us that. Or that even like your phone didn't ring, because if it's here, we tried to offer it to a device, at least at some point. Custom allows you to change the date range and then click on filter. It will let you go back up to 12 months, right? 1 year. If you need to go back further, you'd have to contact our support team. We have to escalate that up to our engineering team. They can go back up to 18 months. After that, the data is not available. So if you need your call log data for some sort of compliance reasons, you probably want to do it every month. All right, feature codes. I've talked about a couple of these. These are ways for your VoIP phone users to access a Dash features directly from their VoIP phone. All right, this is a web page on our support pages. There's also a document on our support pages called the phone commands cheat sheet, which has the phone commands, but also has a contextual help. Okay, so that's the dashboard. Blacklists. This is a way to block phone numbers from reaching your system. You would click edit blacklist. You would click add, or in this case, I'm just going to edit an existing one. But you give it a name, and then you choose, are you blocking anonymous calls or not? Right? By default, it's off, meaning calls with invalid caller ID will come through. If you turn it on, if they don't present proper phone number caller ID, we block the call. They get busy tone. Beyond that, you come here, click on add number, put +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses, and keep clicking add until you're done adding numbers. Once you are done, click on save, then click on back to settings at the top right, and make sure your list is on the right-hand side under selected. So you might have to click and drag to bring it over, and then click update. All right, faxes. This is your fax manager, so you can see fax activity on your account. So on the inbound faxes, I chose the main fax box. I can see the date and times, phone numbers involved. I can download the file if I want to. And I can also choose to delete the file if we don't need it any longer. Outbound fax tab, again, choose the fax box. So I can see, oh, this was a failure. So if you see a failure here, that means we had a problem communicating with the other phone number. That could be, we kept getting busy tone each time we tried, or it could be we actually connected initially, but something interrupted transmission. Sometimes if you click on the little detail icon here at the far right, you might get more information, but lately all I've ever seen is failed. I think one time did I see user busy recently. Right, and that just meant that when we tried the phone number, it rang busy. The system will try to send a fax out 3 times before it says, okay, before it gives up. Aaron has any. The email to fax logs, this is where the system had a problem with processing their requests, right? So you see the email addresses used, the format that they sent it out to, the date, the time, little eyeball icon here. And then under errors, you see there is no valid attachment. So this could be no attachment was included, right? They forgot. Or they tried to send like a JPEG instead of a PDF or TIFF file. Number manager, this just takes you to your spare number page. Reports, this will open up a new tab to take you to advanced reporting. This is a plan-specific feature and allows you to create your own reports. So if you go into the description field or box of this video, you'll see the advanced reporting demo. Click on that link. It's going to show you what some of the reporting can do. If you're interested, then you need to reach out to our account services team, right? Account services at virtualpbx.com, or option 4, you call into us. Voicemails, this takes you to your voicemail box or voicemail manager, so you can get to any voicemail on the account. And you can see the date, the time, phone numbers involved. You can play back the message. You can download the message. If you put a check mark in front of the box, right, you can move a voicemail to a different voicemail message, or you can change its status for deletion. Call center, this is ACD queues, right? It's an upgrade feature off of existing plans. I think it's still possible that you may have to upgrade plans and then have an upgrade fee on top of that for queues. You'd want to talk to our account services team. In the description link, look for the ACD Queues Pro demo that shows you what queues can do. Basically, if you've ever called like your bank or whatever, you've probably been in an ACD queue, right? You're called in waiting for someone to pick up, and then that agent helps you, right? Same idea here. Call center, your staff members can change their status, right? They can mark themselves away like when they go to lunch, or they can end their session at the end of their shift, right? So it gives them a little bit of control. It is recommended for your staff members when they log in the first time, especially, to click on the little phone icon next to the status bar to select their queue device, right? So that's the one device that will always ring from the calls from the queue. For your managers in the queue, they can eavesdrop in on a call, right? So this make sure calls are going smoothly, as well as whisper to your staff members or even barge in, right? So it can be advantageous for training purposes. Dynamic caller ID, this is a plan specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID of your VoIP phones. So you would click on create new rule. I'm just going to click on an existing rule. You give it a name. So in this case, I said 408 area code. You select the phone number on your account, and that will be the phone number that shows up as the outbound caller ID. And then you choose the rule. In this case, I said whenever my staff members dial 408, change their phone number to 669. So 669 is an overlay for the 408 area code. And so that way, anytime they pick up their VoIP phone, dial a 408 number, the 669 number I designated here shows up as the outbound caller ID, right? So it looks like a local number to the person I'm calling. Likewise, you could do something like this, where give it a name. I chose a 323 phone number, which is near Los Angeles, and I designated a feature code. So now my staff member needs to dial *550, then enter the area code and phone number they're reaching out to. When they do that, the system automatically changes their outbound caller ID to this 323 phone number. So again, it looks like a local call to whoever they're calling. Monitor is another plan-specific feature. It just allows you to see the status of your staff members, right? So if they're on a call, they have their bar here would turn blue. It would show the caller ID of the person they're talking to. You could sort also by devices. You can see who's available and who is not. Over here, active inbound calls. Each active inbound call would have its own blue box. So you can see the phone numbers involved and who they're speaking to. Park calls, if there's any park calls, they would show up with the caller ID and their parking spot number. The recording manager, this actually opens up a new tab and takes you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. It does need your Dash login information to log in. And there you can see your call recordings, right? You can play them back, you can download them, you can delete them. Webhooks is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to link Dash to other software, right? So you basically means you have 2 subscriptions at the very least. One with us for Dash, and then one with whoever we're linking to. So if you, in the description, if you look for the introduction to Zapier webinar, it should be in there. That will, yeah, there we go. Show you basically how to set up some webhooks. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code of what we have done. This is programming. So basically, if you have some problems with this, our support team will end up having to escalate it up to our engineering team to have a closer look at. But basically, you're filling out the form, clicking on the webhook here, and then you have to associate it on the other side. If you're interested in webhooks, you actually have to talk to our sales team. They're the ones who have the information on that. But again, go to developer.virtualpbx.com or look at that introduction to Zapier YouTube video. And then lastly, we have the user portal. Every user has access to their own user portal. Right? It will default them to their voicemail tab so they can listen to their voicemails directly here from the web page. Right? Play them back, download. They put a check mark here, then they can choose to change its status. The call history tab, they can see their call history and they can change the date range so they can see what was going on. The fax tab only works if the user has their own fax box, but then they can see their own fax history. The contact list shows everything within the Dash account, right? So that way your staff members can find the extension numbers of people they need to transfer to, or groups, or auto attendants, etc. It's not something they can edit themselves, right? So I couldn't add or remove things from this. I can basically, sort by the name or by the number, etc. The conference tab would only work for users who have the conference feature enabled on them. Over here on the right is where you would update their conference room number PIN numbers. Ideally, you would have your moderator pins and participant numbers be different. Then you have the option here, are people joining muted or deafened? Oops. And then are you playing entry and exit tones? When you're in a conference, you can come to your user portal conference tab. Here, you can invite other Dash users to your conference. You can lock a conference so no one else can join. You can mute everybody. You can unmute everybody. You can end the conference call. Also, when you're in a conference, each moderator and participant would have their own box. So you can mute a specific person or kick out a specific person if necessary. And then the settings and devices tab. So here is where your staff members can enable call forwarding on their own. They just put a check mark here. Put the destination phone number in this box here, right? +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses, and then click on Save Changes. Obviously, when they don't need it forward anymore, uncheck it and then save. And that is everything. I haven't seen any questions come up in YouTube chat. So again, feel free to review this, right? We do record it. And or any of the links I mentioned. The 3 SMS related ones, 2 of them have already happened, webinar, and then the third one for SMS opt-in is scheduled for this Thursday, so you can get notified for that. I thank you for your time today, and I hope you have